Last weekend, my sister and I decided to visit our parents for a family get-together. As we arrived, we were greeted by the usual sounds of Mom's laughter and the smell of her famous lasagna. It was all pretty standard, except for one detail: Dad had recently taken up a new hobby. He'd set up an entire model train track in the basement, complete with miniature towns, tunnels, and even a tiny mountain range. It was impressive, to say the least, but something seemed a bit off. The trains were moving at an oddly fast pace, almost as if they were late for a very important date. Curious, I asked Dad about his new setup. He explained that he'd been experimenting with different ways to power the trains. Regular electricity is so passé, he said with a wink. I've found that espresso gives them that extra kick. My sister and I exchanged skeptical glances, unsure if he was joking or if we should start worrying about his caffeine intake. But sure enough, Dad had rigged up a miniature espresso machine to the track, and the trains were zipping around like they were competing in the Grand Prix. As the evening went on, we couldn't help but notice the trains were getting faster and faster. They zoomed through the tiny towns, narrowly avoiding miniature disasters at every turn. One train even derailed, sending a tiny plastic cow flying into the air, much to our amusement. Dad was in his element, gleefully tweaking his espresso-to-train ratio with the precision of a mad scientist. We were all laughing so hard that we barely noticed when the trains started jumping the tracks altogether, creating a bizarre and chaotic scene in the basement. Finally, after a particularly wild loop-de-loop, the trains came to a screeching halt, their wheels spinning wildly in place. Dad looked at us with a sheepish grin and said, "Well, I guess they're just loco-motivated." We all erupted into laughter, realizing that Dad's pun had been the punchline he'd been building up to all evening. It was one of those wonderfully absurd family moments that we'd treasure forever, knowing that sometimes the best stories come from the strangest of hobbies.